June 6th, 1944, off the coast of France. The biggest amphibious invasion in history is about to begin.
See, my God, there's France. Wow, we're gonna be there. We're gonna go in.
But taking the beaches extracts a bloody price tag.
As my little boat came in, the boat on my left blew up. That was my welcome to France.
This is D-Day, the beginning of the end.
This is incredible, guys. I hope to God I live long enough to remember it so I can tell somebody about it.
Almost 70 years ago, these men were boys just out of school. This is the last chance for the few remaining survivors to tell us what really happened.
German bodies, Canadian bodies, British bodies. The smell, the stench. That's war. That's war.
The final year of World War II is as decisive as it is fierce.
You know, this stuff, apple pie and ice cream and democracy, that's crock of bull. We infantry guys, you were fighting for your buddy.
It's their story, in their words, of that heroic push from D-Day to victory. In June 1944, hundreds of thousands of young men gather on the south coast of England, ready for war.
Ships everywhere. Ships behind us, at the sides of us, in front of us. And I'd never seen so many ships. I never knew we had so many ships. There were ships of every size. I was just amazed. And I stood there for about 20 minutes, half an hour, and an officer came up and spoke to me. And I said, I'm just looking at the ships. And he said, well, you better get your kit ready. We're going in shortly.
It was as if a giant had pulled ropes with them all attached. It was a fantastic sight.
And I'm looking at the white cliffs. I'm saying to myself, God, I hope someday I'm able to get back here again. And I was happy. I felt secure. I felt that, you know, God was going to be with me and that I was going to make it.
Everybody around you was scared, but you don't want to act scared in front of your buddies. You know, this stuff, apple pie and ice cream and democracy, that's crock of bull. We infantry guys, you were fighting for your buddy. The guy on the right and the left of you. You didn't want to let them down. That's what it was all about. And you really didn't think you were going to get hit. Never dawned on me that I'd get hit.
This was the real thing, and there was a feeling inside each guy, I imagine, that how am I going to act under fire? I had never killed anybody. I never had a gun when I was a child. I never went hunting like the Southerners in my outfit. So I didn't know whether I could kill a man. I made up my mind that I wasn't coming back.
Just after midnight, D-Day, June 6th, 1944. These men and thousands more British, American, and Canadians received their orders. 5 beaches codenamed Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword must be captured by nightfall. Then the generals want them to push 12 miles inland to seize the city of Caen. But in the way is a massive evil force, the formidable and determined German army intent on forcing them back into the sea. Almost 70 years on, The survivors all have the same vivid memory of the crossing to France.
The weather was rotten, it was windy, and our little landing craft assault was just like a cork bobbing all over the place. And I picked up a bully beef sandwich, and all of a sudden I had a tap on my shoulder. Hutch was there, and he was green and sick. My jocks were the same color. He looked at me and he said, "Sir, turf that flippin' sandwich, will you?"
I was sick continuously all the way over until I could be sick no more. Until we got the order, start engines, unshackle the tanks, my seasickness disappeared.
I mean, you could hear a pin drop. Honestly, there was, because everybody knew. But some of the guys, honestly, they had premonitions. Thank God I didn't have a premonition. They knew they were going. They knew they weren't going to make it.
Before the troops land, the Allies attempt to soften up the German defenses with an aerial and then naval bombardment. A 19-year-old medical student from New York, Hal Baumgarten, is huddled inside his ship listening in as the bombs start to fall.
A tremendous amount of noise. And of course, the English Channel was getting rougher each time because the ships, when they fired those guns, would cause the waves to occur.
I got 16-inch guns that were slinging shells out this size, and they went overhead like an express train. It sounded just like a train going over your head.
We were a 6-inch gun cruiser, which meant we could get quite relatively close to the shore, and our target was the gun emplacements on the shore. And what happened is one of our shells went through the embouchure, didn't hit the concrete, went right inside. And it exploded. It blew that whole turret into pieces no bigger than a motor car. And they're still there amongst the grass. And that's why they called it the luckiest shot. But we always said it was the most accurate.
As 18-year-old George Dangerfield approaches Juno Beach, the enemy fires their first shots at the Allied invasion force.
I mean, as we went into the beach, we had the enemy artillery firing at us, and it was going over our heads. The noise was just horrendous. It was something that none of us had ever been trained to experience. It was something that you quickly accepted because you had a job to do.
For 20-year-old Bostonian Donald McCarthy, seeing the coast of Normandy is something he will never forget.
I'm saying, my God, there's France. Wow, we're going to be there. We're going to go in.
June 6, 1944, D-Day. Among the Allied forces making their way to the beaches of occupied France is 20-year-old American Donald McCarthy.
All of a sudden, the rockets started going off, and the battleship started bombing, and I'm saying, my God, what is going on? This is incredible, guys. You know, I hope to God I live long enough to remember it so I can tell somebody about it. It was amazing. There was a cacophony of sound that I'll never forget. I could feel it, every sound of it, right now as I'm talking to you.
It was just a mess. Smoke, dirt, noise, more noise than you can imagine. Even stories that our father had told us about the First World War, I don't think compared with the noise that we went into.
The D-Day invasion plan is far from perfect, and not helping matters. The weather is atrocious. For the men at sea, it's unlike anything they've ever experienced. The journey to shore starts as they disembark from the larger ships into tiny, vulnerable landing craft. This is when Bill Ryan gets his first taste of the carnage to come.
As we're circling, all 4 of our boats was knocked off by 88s and by mines. My boat was hit, was blown up in the air. All I remember is hitting my head against the bulkhead. But it hit us on the right-hand side, and the boat went over this way. So my head, you know, went this way. And that's when I cracked my skull, and I had a big shell fragment in my shoulder.
Shells and bullets rain down on the men from above. Beneath the choppy sea, the Germans have laid underwater mines. Like a giant swimming pool, lanes are marked in the sea where it's clear for the landing craft to get through. So they hope. A 20-year-old farm boy from Ontario, Canada, Alex Adair is one of thousands heading towards Juno Beach.
My craft hit an obstacle out in the water. And it blew the whole front of the landing craft up in the air. And there was nothing but water pouring in, and guys up in the front, they were all done for. That was it for them. They were game over.
Hal Baumgarten's closest comrades suffer the same fate as they approach Omaha Beach.
As my little boat came in, the boat on my left from Company B hit a mine and blew up, and we were showered with wood, metal, and body parts, and blood. So that was my welcome to France. After I saw my best buddy dead, and I saw all these fellas that I knew getting killed, you get sort of almost like a psychosis. You want to kill.
As the landing craft close in on the beaches, they drop their ramps, revealing the battlefield ahead.
When the ramp went down, it almost fell on a soldier, a dead soldier. I noticed there was something was wrong, didn't look natural, and it just dawned on me that he had no head. He only had a piece of bone sticking up back there.
With the ramps down, the men become easy targets for the Germans. Many are cut down before they make it to shore. Others try desperately to swim, weighed down by their gear.
These guys stepped off the ramp, they went straight down to the bottom, and most of them drowned.
Like Hal Baumgarten, Donald McCarthy is approaching Omaha Beach, getting ready to jump into the water.
This is my helmet. It's something I have to have with me all the time. My shin strap was on when I went over the side of the boat. And when I went in head first, the air that had accumulated in my helmet pulled me back to the surface. And that's when hey, I'm up. I got my CO belt, I got rid of everything. All I've got on is my little 29th Division jacket, that's it. The combat jacket is gone, the rifle is gone, my camera is gone. I'm saying, son of a gun, my dad will kill me because I lost the camera.
Over on Gold Beach, the bad weather blows the British Royal Marine Commandos 12 miles off course. Hundreds of men try desperately to swim ashore, many of whom don't make it.
Now, there's a kid next to me, and I thought he had just come up with me, but I later found out that he had drowned. But I was talking to him as close as I am to you. I'm talking to him in the water. I'm saying, come on, swim, swim, swim. And he's not saying anything to me. And I grabbed him on the shoulder, and I pulled him along with me. Initially, I was pulling him because I was using him as a safety net. I wasn't doing it out of any favor for him. I was doing it out of favor for me. This bothered the hell out of me for a long years, 25 years. It bothered me. That's been the main part of my whole life. That guilt, because they were the heroes. We were the survivors.
Facing a hail of bullets and mortars, Donald McCarthy is losing hope.
And the smoke came over. That was the miracle. You know, I think God had a plan for me.
Using the smoke as cover, Don and the rest of his unit on Omaha race up the beach. Although many men are finally landing on the beaches, progress is slow at Omaha. With hundreds already dead, the next waves are sent in, but they have no idea of the bloodbath waiting for them. Among those landing on Sword Beach is 24-year-old Jim Kelly.
In our group, there would be about 7 of us. Within 6 paces of getting onto the sand, there was only me standing up. The others were all down, and I got told to get off the beach.
In the chaos of war, a bizarre, surreal image comes into focus.
There was a man standing there in his full naval uniform, dead smart, and he was directing traffic off the beach. Come on, off the beach. Wouldn't let anybody stop. Get off. Get off.
Also coming ashore on Sword Beach is signalman Ken Sturdy.
I can remember a beachmaster. He was a Navy officer, I think, and he had, of all things, a bulldog on a lead, which made me think of Churchill, of course. And He was yelling, you know, like, get off the beach. His instructions, of course, as beach master, was to clear that beach and get people over the seawall because the Germans had the range of the beach.
Hours into the Allies' invasion at Normandy, progress is slow going as the second wave of troops approach the beach. The sands that lay ahead are deadly as they're riddled with mines.
A man came by me. I don't know who he was, what outfit he was with. He could have been an engineer on that beach, as far as I know, but a mine that had been hung on a fence post went off just as he's alongside of it, and it blew the man in half.
Newly trained sick berth attendant George Dangerfield will never forget the stretcher bearers bringing in the first casualties. The numbers are overwhelming.
It was a case of treating the most severe first if you could. I will remember one Army Major that we brought back to England to look at him as he was standing up. You wouldn't think that there was a thing wrong with him, but he walked over an anti-personnel mine, and from the top of his head to his heels, he was actually shredded, the whole of his back, and his arms, legs were completely shredded.
Just off Juno Beach, George patches up the wounded as best he can. While over on Omaha, Hal Baumgarten is in the thick of battle.
I saw things on that beach that no 19-year-old should ever have to see. I saw men with their inners hanging out, screaming, mom, mother, medic. They were horrible sights. Body parts laying on that beach, legs, arms, heads, but we kept going.
The Allies landing on the beaches of Normandy have given the Nazi forces a chance to inflict heavy casualties. Ahead of the invasion, the generals had an extraordinary plan they hoped would help the soldiers advance up the beaches. The Air Force would fly over the beaches and bomb them.
The idea was the Air Force was supposed to bomb the beach so we'd have foxholes to get into. Well, they were late assembling over England. And by the time they come in, the landing craft were coming in. So they didn't want to drop their bombs for fear of hitting us, so they dropped their bombs 3 miles inland, you know. Then I don't mind saying the great Air Force, you know. Precision bombing in World War II, baloney, baloney.
This is the one thing that we were promised with it. Oh, don't worry, guys. The Navy will take care of you. They'll dig all kinds of holes for you. You won't have to worry. There'll be plenty of places to hide. Yeah, I'm saying to myself, doesn't look that way.
The men have to dig in, all the time being shelled and under machine gun fire.
There were 3 lads. They were digging a trench on the beach, and there was machine gun fire. One fellow was getting hit, and he was looking at his arm. That was getting chewed to bits.
Of all the men who survived the lottery of D-Day, Hal Baumgarten on Omaha Beach is one of the luckiest.
An 88mm shell landed in front of me. I got hit by a fragment of that 88, which hit me in this side of my face. My cheek, as described by an aid man later, was laying over my ear. The upper jaw was shot away on the left side, the maxilla. I had a hole in the roof of the mouth. I had teeth and gums laying on my tongue. Couldn't spit them out, couldn't swallow them.
Donald McCarthy is also on Omaha Beach. So far, he's been saved from drowning by his helmet and from a hail of bullets by his comrade's dead body.
Another shell burst, and both the medic and myself, he got caught in the back and I got caught in my left leg. And I'm down, and I'm saying, hey, I got some problems too. And the two medics pulled me and pulled the kid that had been shot bad, pulled us up onto the berm so we're hidden.
Taking cover on an open beach isn't easy. Thousands like Vincent Horton take advantage of whatever they can find.
I was carrying the adjutant's map case and the mortars came over. And I dived into where a bomb or a shell had blown the sea wall down a bit and left a crater. I dived in there and my rifle cut my eye open right up at the top there, and the mortar, I felt some bits go in me. I waited till it finished, then I dashed off and got up to where we had to rendezvous, and I gave him back his map case, and he says, look at this. And there was a hole right through it. Missed me. Gone through the map case. But they dug the few pieces out of me and patched my eye up, and we were off.
With only half a jaw and most of his teeth missing, Hal Baumgarten continues as if nothing has happened until he is hit again.
Just then a mortar shell went off, and I got 3 pieces of shrapnel into my helmet, into my scalp, and I reached in with 3 fingers, came out with blood. Blood came out over my ear and down the back of my neck.
Some men in Hal's unit with flamethrowers try to take out the German pillboxes and bunkers. Hal watches in horror as the Germans turn their sights on them.
The flamethrowers were hit, their fuel tanks were hit. And the men were cremated. I could smell the flesh.
No amount of training could have prepared George Dangerfield for the horrifying injuries piling up before him.
We were trying to keep alive those people that had been brought to us who were wounded and injured. Shrapnel wounds could be very, very ugly. They could take a limb off or take masses of muscle tissue and things like that and leave great holes in the body. You had little time to worry about what else was happening around you.
The Allied generals hoped to capture the city of Caen, 12 miles away, before nightfall. But by early afternoon, the men struggled to gain even 100 yards of ground. Donald McCarthy is one of thousands lying injured on Omaha Beach. Despite his mortar shell wounds, he continues to watch the chaos of war unfold before his very eyes.
And I watched the beach devastated. I watched the whole show. I saw an ME-109 fly over twice and strafe the beach. I saw kids getting killed, still coming in on the beach.
Against the odds, Bill Ryan makes it to the top of Omaha Beach, where he takes a moment to turn back and look at the devastation behind him.
The only thing that saved us was this U.S. Navy destroyer, the USS Frankfurt, came in real close without running aground and started banging away at the hill. So he suppressed the fire up on the top of the hill. And that's what allowed us to get through the exit and get on up the hill.
Ahead of the troops lay yet another obstacle. For once, this is something the generals have equipped the men for.
Once you hit the hill, going up, there were barbed wire and minefields, and the engineers had to clear them with the Bangalore torpedoes.
Despite the losses and casualties, the remaining troops, safely through the barbed wire, are close to the German forces. Though some are injured, they heroically keep going. Hal Baumgarten crawls off Omaha Beach, assuming he'll never survive the day. He's lost half his jaw, most of his teeth, and 3 bits of shrapnel are stuck in his head. It's a miracle he's still alive. Then more bad news.
While crawling, I must have set off this mine. It felt like a rock hitting my left foot. I looked down and I saw a clean hole through my left foot, through the legging. We wore leggings. So I was very good at bandaging. So I took the shoe off and I, like you would dump water out of a vase, I dumped the blood out of my shoe, took the sock off, put a beautiful bandage on, powder and beautiful bandage. But just then shells were coming in, so I pulled the shoe over the bandage and dove for the hedgerow.
Vast strongholds, an assortment of concrete pillboxes, radar stations, and bunkers at the top of the beaches are the final but most impregnable defenses the troops still have to face. Charles Scott Brown on Sword Beach knows exactly what to do.
So what you do is you keep moving, and then you try and get a section underneath. So that the gun is there, and you get the guy underneath here. And what you do is you take grenades and you throw them in the gun slot. So if it's a 3-second fuse, what you do is you let the handle go. You can see the smoke on it, and you go 1,000, 2,000, and you throw it in.
The power of a grenade leaves many with a lasting memory.
I looked inside, and there were 2 men in there, what was left of them. One of them wasn't anything left of him, but from his hips down, his legs were there, and the rest of his body was gone. That's and the other one was about the same way. And there were dead soldiers laying around that gun.
Once at the top of the beaches, the men realize that somehow they've survived the bloodiest assault course of the war so far.
You say, well, thank God it's not me. I mean, as bad as I felt for those poor buggers, Maybe I'm selfish, but I say, Jesus Christ, I made it.
One thing you can't show is the smell of warfare. It is the smell of death. It's just a thing that you can't convey. It's just an evil thing. Yeah.
In one fell swoop, you ceased being a boy and you became a man because you had to deal with man's problems. It was as quick as that. I mean, after all these years, still needs some talk.
The troops have spent the entire day battling to get off their beaches. As night falls, some are still bogged down in the dunes. Others venture into Normandy, but none achieve their target, to reach the city of Caen. After a brutal day of fighting, dusk approaches, and Allied soldiers are still trying to get off the beaches of Normandy. Just off Omaha Beach, with half a jaw, shrapnel in his head, and a hole in his foot, Hal Baumgarten is about to be hit again.
Well, there was a German machine gun about 50 meters down the road and trained on that road. An MG-42, and everybody got ambushed there. And I came a little late, and I was crouched over. So I got a bullet. It came through this piece of lip, took away this piece of lip, and took out my right upper jaw with more teeth and gums on my tongue. So there I fell on top of these guys who didn't matter anymore because they were just about gone.
For the first time on D-Day, Hal begins to lose hope.
So I used up my last morphine, and the moon on D-Day was the brightest moon I've ever seen in my life. And I'm laying with 6 dead GIs in a ditch.
After he is injured on the same beach, Donald McCarthy is taken to a field hospital.
And there's a ranger coming down, and he's got some Jerry's with him, and we're saying, my God, we got some prisoners. Wow, maybe this thing isn't as bad as we thought it was. And we looked at the Jerry prisoners, and they all looked like they were Chinese or Japanese, and we kind of, well, where did they come from? They were Ukrainians that had been taken by the Germans. They were Russian prisoners that they had mobilized, and these were kind of the frontline guys they used as buffers. And those were the first prisoners that were taken.
Hal Baumgarten is found lying in a ditch with 6 dead soldiers. At last, he's in the care of the medics, heading back on a stretcher towards the beach for evacuation. But his ordeal is not over.
German snipers were to my left up on the bluff, and they started firing at the wounded. They put a bullet through the Red Cross on the armband of the aid man. They shot me in the right knee, which wasn't a bad wound, believe it or not. But the next one was going through between the eyes. And just then, the destroyer McCook came offshore with the bottom scraping the bottom, and the gunnery officer became my friend. in recent years. He wiped out the snipers with the 5-inch guns. Went right over my head. And you saw a puff of smoke coming off that bluff, and the snipers were wiped out. Exterminated. I like to use the word exterminate.
Suddenly, the noise of war is interrupted.
I could hear bagpipe playing, and I thought I was imagining it. Strange how the sound of a bagpipe carries above even this tremendous noise level. And it was years later I met Bill Millen, who was the Lord Lovett's piper, and told him that I could hear his pipes, you see. I said, we talked of armaments. I said, all I went ashore was with a pistol, you see. He said that my pipes were my weapon.
That was D-Day. The next day, men looked back at the beaches they'd secured, now laden with the dead, wounded, and dying. They know everything hadn't gone according to the general's plan. But the invasion of Europe has begun. George Dangerfield spends the next few months ferrying the wounded back across the Channel.
I just did what I was expected to do. It's something that life throws at you and you try to carry on.
Vincent Horton, who'd survived the shrapnel through his map case, is later seriously wounded when he steps on a landmine.
Oh, when I woke up and saw both legs off, I was devastated. But when I knew I was alive, I was happy. I knew then that there was no war for me. In other words, I'm all right now, Jack. That was it.
The invincible Hal Baumgarten, wounded 5 times on D-Day alone, is evacuated back to England. He never fights again.
Well, it gave me a greater feeling for life. In other words, I knew how short life was, and to live through something like that shows you that life is important. And each day, like I tell my wife, every day maybe 5 times a day, how much I love her, and my kids. All my kids say, when they talk to me, they say, I love you, and we say the same thing back. Because you never know when your time is going to be up.
The rest of the men, including the wounded, advanced into Normandy, leaving the beaches behind them.
You know what's happened in the previous action, and by God, you're worried about what's going to happen in the next one.
The Allies failed to capture Caen. The generals insist it's still their objective.